this to one of the Samco or the BMW World solid silicon ones.
So does it? This is the mass airflow sensor, right? Does it change that too or not?
No, that's a 3.5 inch mass air already.
So is rubber missing, or is that?
No, it's just the way it fits on there. Replace this with a silicone boot. You potentially can. There are a number of increased big bore throttle bodies that.
This.
No, this is the TPS sensor. This whole throttle body here. I don't know. I think those are like 3 inches, and they actually make a 3.5 inch one that kind of keeps all of this together.
Yeah.
It has cams in it, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so that will help. It has headers to go with it. You will need a tune to carry that.
We have a Castle.
Okay, then, but has the car actually been on the dyno?
We haven't found that out yet.
Okay, because Jim's, he's close to me. He's my tuner too. You've got good stuff here with all the water pump and pulley. You may want to, at some point, update the power steering reservoir.
Yeah.
It's down in there.
I see the cylinder.
Down there?
Yeah. That, in the combination with the factory, what they call the trombone out in the front here, where the factory hose crimps onto it, is a notorious leak point.
Okay.
BMW World makes a remote reservoir over here that is AN lined, that you get rid of all the factory rubber.
Okay.
And then power steering units leak constantly, but they leak from the inside because of the constant abrasion of the fluid going through the lines.
So what areas will be replaced?
It'll replace this reservoir and all of the factory rubber lines with a stainless steel unit over here and braided line.
Okay.
We've already got a Euro reservoir that looks good. I mean, there is not.
And that catch can right there, is that adequate? That didn't bother James. He said, I wouldn't touch that.
Yeah, that's just good. I'm not a huge fan of venting the crankcase directly to the atmosphere. If you can, the intake creates a vacuum.
Yeah.
If you can pull a vacuum on the top up here, it reduces crankcase pressure, it makes the valve stems seal better, and it frees up a little windage, that fluff of oil that floats in there, which is almost like peanut butter. It gets thick.
So where would we tie that into then?
There's two ways to do. You can factory, it goes right to here, and it goes into the second hole, and it just refeeds the gases back in and creates a vacuum. The other way to do it is to put a catch can here that drops the oil in and then runs the vacuum back, so that you're not feeding the oils and stuff back in.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah.
That would be an add-on benefit.
So wait a minute. So this is a vacuum here.
Yeah, this is the crankcase ventilation system.
Okay. So why would you want to feed the vacuum back into your intake?
It's not. This is not the vacuum. This is the vent.
So the vacuum is here, so it's
the
sucking
intake
here.
provides vacuum. You really want to provide vacuum to the top of the motor. That would, because it reduces oil consumption, it helps the valve stem seal a little bit, and it stops pushing. It helps the rings seal. If there's a vacuum on one side and a positive on the other, rings pop out.
So the canister here, in that case, would have to have it sealed then, not a vented one, but sealed.
Correct.
Right?
What they make is one that looks, it's an oil catch. It has a line in, the oil drops down, the other end is filtered, and it pulls air vacuum into it off of there.
So how is that tied then, that line tied into
there are two holes in the bottom of this thing right here.
Yeah.
One of them is the idle control motor. The other one is probably got a plug in it.
Okay.
Now we're going to be replacing this with the silicone one, so
but you can
as
buy
well,
them
right?
with 1 or 2 holes in it.
Yeah.
Buy the one with 2 holes in it, and then do. I mean, there's some cleanup I see down in here. This plugged line right here is part of the factory cooling system that has never been fully deleted.
Okay.
So what would have to do with that?
Just cap it.
Up in here, Right back here at the back of the water pump is a nipple and a black teed type tube, and it runs back here and is where this is tied in.
Yeah.
And then it runs out here, and this is where these two used to take coolant used to run through the throttle body when it was a street motor to keep it from, you know, running down the road in 35-degree moist air and having all that cold air rush in. It would freeze up.
Okay, yeah.
You know, same principle as when you dispense gas. You know, it gets cold when it, you know, well, as a race car, you don't need that. This never got backed up and got all of this stuff cleaned up. All it did is got capped. This
we can take that out.
Well, you can take this whole unit out if you get one of the plugs that goes in the back of the water pump, and it just provides a nipple. Then you can eliminate it. Yeah. All I'm thinking.
What about this? Wasn't this for the condenser?
No, that's the Euro oil cooler setup.
Okay, all right.
That's good.
That's a must. That's a must.
You know, those look good. It's got, well, it's got factory motor mounts in it. I would certainly update the motor mounts.
That's what he said too, yeah.
Motor mounts and trans mounts.
Okay. So we'll pull the engine out
those
then?
will be more
No, you don't have, you can
Just
do it
jack
from
it up?
underneath. You can lift up, you can loosen both of them, take the nut off of one side, lift it up. It'll slide out. They're a canister. They look just like this. They have a stud on both sides.
Okay.
And then what you've got now is the big rubber one, so everything's moving.
Yeah.
So you're losing some forward momentum because the motor moves instead of transferring all the torque to the rear wheels.
Gotcha. Okay. So do you know a particular type of motor mount we should be getting?
BMW World has some really nice solid ones.
Okay.
Some people debate the advantages of solid. I mean, solid is best, but solid requires a little bit more maintenance because it is solid and it transfers some of the fatigue through the metals. So it's not one and done forever. You should
maintain it.
You should be checking your trans mounts. You should be checking your subframe so that it doesn't fatigue and crack. You know.
Now, if you go to solid motor mounts, should your transmission mounts also be solid?
Yes.
So we should go for solid motor mounts and transmission mounts.
Or at least a very stiff pair of, like, remember, I think the brand's PowerFlex they sell. You know, like a real thick urethane or a Durlin or something like that. But I mean, I've never had any trouble. I put solid motor mounts in my car back, I don't know, 2004, and you know they're still good. You know, everything. I mean, you've got, because you're a weight-based car and this makes weight at 2980 with you in it. You know, I don't know if there's any advantage to pulling the heater box and stuff out of it.
Yeah, we're definitely going to take that out.
Well, then you
have to put weights in it, right?
Well, yes, there's an advantage to that because you can put the weight where you want it to be.
Yeah.
The heater box is a simplified operation, but you create another issue in that is fogging of the windshield.
Right.
A hot, moist, rainy day, engine coming off, the heat off the engine and stuff is, you know, you have to figure out how to deal with that.
Yeah, we had it actually the other day when it was foggy. I had that problem.
And this didn't clear it?
No, it cleared it. Yep.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, good, it works.
Well,
we'll put like an on-off switch instead and pull out some of that stuff that we don't need there.
Well, it's a one-piece unit. That's the whole thing. There's nothing you can't separate the blower and the heater control. And
isn't there a simplified unit which is like a fraction of the weight?
Yes, but you have to weigh 2980 when you cross the scales with you in the car.
Correct.
But
when we corner balance, when these cars get corner balanced, you always end up needing more weight on the right rear wheel here.
I know.
So what I think we can easily take 50 pounds out of this car still, maybe even more.
And put the weight here to make up for it.
I don't know what it weighs now, but yeah, it's. Oh yeah.
Fred has the weights for us too still.
Well, you know, keep this battery, because that's taking weight out of this corner is exactly where you don't want to keep it. Take it out.
Yeah.
But from a tech standpoint, you need to get that thing. You couldn't go racing right now without getting this positive terminal insulated. It needs to be physically covered so that in the event of some sort of bump, this can't get pushed into the pushed into the short out. You know, part of what you can eliminate is all of this
the evap
stuff, but you're going to need to program accordingly, and you're going to need to go up in the fender well and correct the venting, because otherwise you're going to open up the vent and you're going to have an evap issue with the OBD2 system.
No,
it's going to say it's got a leak somewhere.
Okay.
Is there some place we can check that online, how to, you know, to vent it from the tank?
Yeah.
Here?
Yeah, there's a ton of those. All the Bimmer forum ones, you know, any of the Facebook groups all will have, you know, stuff that you can read.
Now,
those.
are we required to leave the battery here or not?
No, you can do it wherever you want, but there is no advantage to removing the battery from here or going to a lighter weight battery.
Okay.
You need weight in this right rear corner. It's always the light corner.
Right.
And you run the risk of the car not starting at some inopportune time when BMWs like electricity. They don't work really well on 16, you know, ounce braille batteries. You know, something will be hot, something you'll leave a fan on. They just don't have enough reserve.
Okay.
The injectors require minimum voltage or they stop working. You know, the car will still crank and run, but crank and start, crank and crank and crank, but it'll be like it's out of fuel because there's, you know, 10.3 volts works for an injector, 10.2 volts will shut the injector off.
Correct.
So,
correct. The cool suit we should put down here where the evap is?
that would be helpful, yeah. That would be helpful because you really can't get into it with the lid up where it is up here. You know, but there's all kinds of. This ain't a great wing for IP.
Well, we were told that it's illegal. Actually, James told us that
this secondary thing on it.
He said it has to be one piece.
How important is the downforce on these cars?
He said it's too much downforce too.
I don't know what this ARPPR one is. But you can also see it's not really solidly mounted because it's all on the trunk. You know, there are some ways to, with that cross where the frame rail is back here, just to put a pole up that touches the bottom of the trunk. So it's not that the trunk's lifting up, it's that it's pushing down back here.
Right, yeah.
You know.
That's true, yeah.
There's some wiring.
You think we should replace these with some Lexan?
You cannot.
Can't?
That's not allowed in prepared class.
Okay.
You're allowed to do the front window, and you're allowed to do the sunroof with an alternative composite material.
So what can you do on the front windshield?
You can put a
Lexan
or a polycarbonate windshield in it. You know, this stuff is good. I mean, there's nothing.
Yeah, 2 years. I just put the seat in.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take the seat rails out.
I definitely like a solid mounted seat. If this seat is good to 25, but if you do mount it solidly, I would also suggest that you put a brace to it, not from a safety standpoint, but from a stability standpoint. You'd be amazed at how much better it holds you when the top of the seat is hooked to the bar. Some of the seats have a place to bolt them on here, otherwise you just have to support it up this way, or take the cover off right here and plate through it, put a flat plate on this and drill through it and, you know, put it in. But the rest of the stuff, you know, I mean, there's not, you know, this is not ideal where it's, you know, where it's not tucked up in that far, but that's not something you're going to want to change. I mean, I wouldn't go through the headache of changing it because I wouldn't have bought that car for it. This net, I noticed, is not correct. Well, that, yes, but it's also not correctly attached. See how the 3-bolt goes through and then back through for tying it? This has not back through, so it's not tied in the right place.
Okay, so it has to come around like this, back in and around, okay.
Where it is now, this needs to be fed back through right here, this way.
All right. Well, we gotta change that anyways. We're told that it has to be like
it needs to be
a lot higher.
Yeah, I would go up over the top of this with a guide of some way nature, and then hook the hook this arm back in here somewhere.
Yeah.
What time are you
That's
leaving?
exactly what he said too. What James said.
It doesn't do any good. It needs to come out, but the biggest challenge is going to be it needs to attach differently up in the front. If I were you,
higher.
yeah. This car does not have a dash bar in it.
No, not yet.
Just everything, sir.
If you're going to put one in it, then bringing the a pole up through the middle of the dash right here,
Yeah.
and bringing the net into the top of the dash is the way to go.
So that will bring the net up higher.
Yes, it needs to be mounted higher in the top. It's supposed to wrap. This should be coming across up here, right here.
Catch your helmet.
Yes, well, catch your shoulder.
Shoulder, arm.
Yeah, if your head's going to go out here and your shoulder is going to go over here, and then if you get bumped sideways, then this is poking you in the back. It's supposed to contain you into the seat. It's supposed to wrap around and support. You know, that's why this.
It needs to come through here.
So
It needs
can
to
you run
open
that
up
by me
the
again?
dash bar.
This one up here. And
No, I've up and over and tie it off to the outside, tie it off to the
I
side.
see, okay.
This one definitely should be above the bar, and it should be coming over to here.
This one?
The middle one.
The,
The bottom one.
that one. Okay, yeah.
The bottom one should come down to here.
Okay.
It should corral the seat.
All right.
And it should be mounted up there where your shift light is,
Okay.
or at least through the top vent.
All right.
If you don't have a dash bar, you know, a crimped cable with a loop on it,
Yep.
and piece of all thread on the other end of it that has bolt, big washer through the firewall, bolt, big washer on the other side. Because you can.
She needs foot braces too.
I mean, the cage is not ideal. It doesn't have foot protection.
Yeah, you need foot braces.
I mean, it's not required. It's a safety issue.
Yeah.
It's an old car. I mean,
No, but I mean,
It's just design.
I just added them to my car, Jess.
Yeah. If anything, going from here, it does have foot protection up here.
Does it? Okay.
It does have top bars.
Okay.
You know, if you wanted to be ambitious, I would go from where this bottom intersecting
Yeah.
node is here, straight forward to the plate, and remount your dead pedal off of the bottom bar.
Okay.
That way, it doesn't need it on the passenger
It
side.
just stops from
collapsing
your foot right here.
Yeah,
You don't want
you don't want
have that either.
You know,
Yeah.
The front wheel is right in front of you, literally like 2 inches from
there,
here.
okay.
You know, and if you happen to catch, you know, a shunt off the side and bend the control arm back in, you don't want to deform. You don't want to collapse the
right. Okay.
the floorboards.
Collapsing into the car.
Yeah.
It stops here.
I would also yank the hood release from inside.
Yep.
Um,
And put pins in.
put pins in. Do not take these off.
Right.
Do not take this off.
Yeah.
Leave the safety catch here. Use these two holes right here, which correspond to these two holes right here, and you can go up through.
So these ones.
These correspond to these.
These ones. Okay.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So you can go up through. I mean, there are multiple versions. The arrow catches are nice, but they're pretty tight. They're pretty hard because they're thick to fit in up here. They work good if you mount back here or up in here.
Yeah.
But the standard straight up ones here,
With the pin.
yeah, with the pin with a, you know, this captured pin that just slides in is the answer.
So, correct me if I'm wrong now. So this net we want to run into the car approximately where the vent is.
Yes.
And the mounting point should be the front firewall.
It needs to be attached to the firewall. Yeah, you can't. There's nothing right now. It's just attached to the factory dash bar, which is okay, but that factory dash bar isn't up there.
Correct.
So, you know, it's not doing you any good down where it is. So,
And they won't let us race unless we fix that too, right?
I would tell you that you'd have to do some fix.
Okay.
See how this seat has the back brace built into
Yeah.
it? You know, and it's much more stable in the
Yeah.
top.
So in case we would want to keep a slider, how do you stabilize the seats? It's virtually impossible then.
No, it's
Because with endurance races, there's a
Yeah.
good chance that we're going to have taller people.
take a factory electric slider, factory seat, from an E36
Yeah.
and strip the base of it off down to the rails, the front cross member, and the one motor that moves it back and forth.
Yeah.
And then, because they're both, there's aluminum and steel on both of them on the factory slide part, so you can weld to the factory slider.
Okay.
It takes a little manipulation because you need to move the seat to the center, which means the rails.
Well, I just can I interrupt you?
Yeah.
I just did that. I just bought a the VAC
yeah.
adapter kit, right? And I just spent 500. Just spent 500 bucks on that.
understand.
So,
But the manual sliders are at best. They make an FIA one. Recaro makes an FIA one. I mean, it passes the safety stuff.
we were going to get a slider from VAC where we bought that kit from.
See, I mean, all the Sparco, all the Planted, all the Corbeau, they all are two pieces of channel that, you know, go like this.
Right.
There is no physical connection, you know, and in a couple AER accidents that I've seen, that stuff will peel apart. I mean, I run the same AER setup. I need a slider too.
Yeah.
I mean, me, my height, and Scott, and then we have a guy that's, you know, like 5'2".
Yeah.
We played around with a mechanical slider. They seemed to bind a little bit. They weren't great. We had people, because the front, the lever is not, it's just stuck in there. You know, somebody would inevitably reach under there without being sitting in the seat and yank on it, trying to move the seat in a hurry, and they pull it out. I built a custom one using the E36 base. It allows me to, it allowed it to be lower, it allowed it to be electric, so it was infinitely maneuverable, and because it's cast and it meets the DOT, it's, I believe it's about as safe as you can, as strong and safe as you can
Now,
get.
can we mount that on top of the adapter kit?
You don't need to. It'll bolt right to the floor that's there.
Right.
It will use those side pieces though, but you end up having to cut so they're vertical.
Right.
Because I noticed before we put that that kit in, we were driving like this.
Yes.
Now we're like this.
Yes. Let me see if I can find a picture.
You can just email it to me.
I'll do, yeah, because it's, I mean, it's an engineering. The E36 seat has a fore and aft, a back and forth, and a tilt, and it's 3 motors. The one motor that runs across the front, the way it is, there's 2 sliders, and then they have arms that come up them. I cut all those arms off, and there's a triangular cross member that's built into the seat frame. I left that, and I trimmed the edges of it so that it fit up under the corners of the, you know, where the front of the seat rolls down around. And then I bent steel or aluminum, depending on whatever I was feeling, that like the one side goes like this and like this, the other side goes like this and like this, you know, so it goes, it moves it over. And I, you know, trial and error, set it up, welded it all up, and then the top of it I cut to replicate, you know, where the sides bolt on. And it's about, it's as stiff as you can get, as, you know, the best I could come up with.
Yeah.
So I don't know. You know, it's the catch-22.
Yeah.
You know, sliders have to move.
Sure.
Movement is what we're trying to eliminate. So
Right. Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah,
But
that's
that's
true.
it.
We're thinking about just bolting it down and picking drivers that are just our size for the endurance races.
Yeah, that's 6 of one, half dozen. You know, everything's a compromise. Nothing is going to be perfect for multiple people
right.
unless they're the same person cloned over and over
And
again.
multiple different types of races too, AER and sprint.
I would get rid of that factory, that handheld, whatchamacallit, fire extinguisher in the middle. You're never going to, it's practically never, you're practically, it's never going to be practical to use, and it guaranteed that it's not bolted down there strong enough that it will not launch itself when you hit, if you hit a wall.
Yeah.
You know, this, you know, is good. You know the specs and rules on those.
Well, we're learning them. Yeah.
I mean, the rest of it, you know, this stuff looks good. I mean, the car's not overly prepped. This tar, this sound deadening will all come out.
Yeah.
It does not look like it has a dual fuel setup in it. You absolutely need that for endurance. You know, you can manage a 30-minute sprint race with one fuel pump, but because the fuel pump is over here, that's just a sending unit in the car. Every time, and most tracks are clockwise, you know, you get below half a tank, all the fuel is going to slosh to that side through 1 and 2, and it's going to starve. So
yeah, I had that problem with my Evo actually.
Yeah.
So the fuel pump is down here.
Yes.
That's not in the tank.
It is in the tank. That's just a hatch. You open it up, you'll see the tank right below it.
So what do you mean? You need 2 fuel pumps?
Yes. What year is this car again?
96.
Yeah.
Okay. When you open it up, you'll see either a blue or white. If it's white, you need to replace it. I mean, excuse me. If it's blue, you need to replace it. It needs to be a white. And BMW World sells a 2 white kit. The 95s had a white one in it.
The whole tank, mean?
No, just the pumps.
pump.
Okay.
BMW World sells a dual fuel pump kit, and it has the associated plumbing and all the directions to it. It's a no-brainer.
So if we go to a 2-pump system, both pumps go in the tank.
Yes, 1 pump in each side. Now it's not 2 pumps pushing both of them pushing fuel forward. The pump that you're going to add in the driver's side is a transfer. The return from the engine will go down the pump into the well and then be transferred. It'll just constantly be pumping it back to the right side. The right side pump is the supply for the motor. That way they're independent. This one just picks it up and puts it over there where the factory one picks it up. You don't want them both pushing, because that way if you strive, then they're pushing each other, you know, back and forth for head pressure.
Gotcha.
So, you know, you can clean up some of this. You can, I mean, there's a ton of little bracket stuff.
Yeah.
Like these seat brackets don't need to be there. That seat clip doesn't need to be down there. The front clips here, underneath the seats, I'm sure that there's
tons of shit.
Well, there's all kinds of little tabs comes up off the floor in a BMW that the wires are all bolted to.
Yeah.
You know, if you don't have a seat and are doing any work in there, it tears your pants constantly crawling around in it. You know. But you know, the brakes, the suspension, that stuff's good.
Yeah.
You know, quality in it. I mean, this is an acceptable, good open space. I mean, for this, you know, I mean, I'm not super keen on, you know, if I would have built the cage, I'd have put it up and brought it down through the dash up here. But that's not here nor there. You can, as long as you can get in and out of it, you know.
Yeah.
It's.
But you definitely think we should weld a pipe from here into the floor well?
Yes,
up front.
there's got to be a plate that this bar is already welded to. If that plate's big enough, you should be able to go forward and join it at the bottom. That way, you completely insulate yourself from the floor pan being crushed.
Now, what about a recommendation for a removable steering wheel?
That's what I said. You just start looking online. The entry-level NRG ones, $100, work good. You already have a hub on there to put that one on. So the best one would be for me to just buy one and stick in between it.
Yeah.
The weld-in ones, like we talked about, you've already got most of what you need. All you now need is a weld-in one. You know, your personal preference. Do you stick your fingers through it and pull a ring behind it, or do you get one that has looks like you know, paddle shifters that you can really reach through with your fingers?
The ring is fine.
Yeah, either
now,
or.
when you do that, the steering wheel is not going to come forward, is it?
It will by the thickness. NRG makes a thin one, which is like 1.5 inches.
Yeah.
The other ones are like 2.5.
So we want the thin one.
Depends on what you want. I don't know. I mean, I personally like my seat about as far away as I can get it, so my legs are fully extended, but then I also like my steering wheel here. So I have a 6-inch extension in my steering wheel. Brings it back to me.
Gotcha.
You know, but that's legs. I do not like to sit that you know, I want to sit completely on it. I don't want to be sitting on the back of my hips.
Right.
You know, I want my legs supported the whole way out under the seat.
And we're a lot smaller than you are.
That's personal preference. You can play with it and try it.
All right.
But yeah, NRG makes one. Chronic makes a nice one. Lifeline is the weld-on one you looked at in Greg's probably isn't necessary. Since you've got 2 of the 3 pieces, I just buy the 3rd instead of discarding one of them to buy 2 more.
Right. Oh, remember the ABS stuff that you're telling me about? Can you show me where the module and everything is here? Just so I got that on video.
Oh.
Remember we had a problem with the ABS,
yes.
right?
This is your pedal travel sensor right down here on the side, on the bottom of this. Those can be faulty and should be one of the first things to replace right down here.
So that's just this module here.
Yeah, it's pull in. It's just a parameter. It just goes in and out. It's a rod that goes in and out.
Okay.
You know, if it's not broken, you know, it probably doesn't need a wholesale fix, and it's not time to fool with it.
And what was this for?
That was the there was a traction control motor on here.
Okay.
This is the cable for it, and this is the parameter for it. This has been programmed out and or a resistor stuck in it somewhere to make it work. Generally,
And this has to be in there.
yes,
obviously.
if it's unplugged, the ABS is disabled.
Oh, okay. So this is the ABS module?
No, it's the traction control module, but it's integrated that when it's out of the circuit, when it's out of unhooked, the ABS is deactivated too.
Why are there 3 plugs here and 1 plug here if this is an OBD2 car?
Because that's the OBD plug. That's the under hood 20 pin. That's the diagnostic plug.
Okay, so this is the 20 pin instead
Yes.
of the regular OBD2 plug.
Well, they're both. That's where the factory scanner is hooked up to it. The retail OBD is under the dash. They both do the same thing.
Is that an OBD2 or 1?
OBD2.
OBD2. So what are these 3?
Because it had the wiring harness that's in this has been thinned down, and it's had either, well, no, I'm sorry, this is running on OBD1. That's an OBD1 harness. It's an OBD1 harness into an OBD2 car. This was the other half, and that was the transmission.
Can we simplify that then? Is it possible?
It's possible, but
Like a lot of that stuff probably isn't being used.
That's not worth it, probably.
Yeah.
well, it is, but to do it in the car is impractical. The best thing, you know, when we start from a ground zero with the car stripped, we take the entire wiring harness and the fuse box out.
We're doing that.
And then send it off to Kevin Tilley and say, this is what I want to be available to me in the function at the end, and he'll send it back to you with new connectors on the end and everything labeled, and eliminate 90% of the wires.
Oh, really?
Yes. It's not worth my hassle. I frustrate myself too much trying to.
So you suggest to send the whole wiring harness to him?
Yeah.
And probably 50% of the wiring harness will be gone then.
Or more. Jim Castle will do the same thing.
So tell me what we should keep in the electrical system then.
Well, it depends on what
ABS.
you want to keep. Well, yes, you want the ABS, you want your lights.
Headlights?
Yeah.
High and low beam?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. They're all wired in this. They're the same wires.
Taillights, obviously. No
Yeah.
signals.
You don't necessarily need the signals. You don't need the windows. You don't need any of the HV. If you're taken out, you don't need any of the HVAC. You don't need any of the cigarette lighter. Climate control, windows, sound system.
We're going to keep the cigarette lighter for auxiliary power for the camera.
There's an easier way to do that. Buy yourself a 4 or 5 plug USB and wire it in hard. Then you can just plug everything you need in, because AER is going to require that you have a Flagtronics unit. You're going to need a timer. You're going to need a camera. So the cigarette lighter is going to turn into a jumbled 1 power subbed out.
So basically just a USB hub.
Yeah,
Wired into
buy a 12-volt USB. I buy the Marine ones.
Yeah.
They've got the rocker switches on them. They've got 4 or 5 USBs, a voltmeter, so that you can see it doubles as a voltage meter that you don't have in the car already.
All right. That's good advice.
Right now you have an oil temperature, but you don't have an oil, you have an oil pressure, but you don't have an oil temperature gauge.
Yeah, I got a temperature gauge at home.
Yeah.
So as far as gauges, what would you have? You should have coolant temperature, oil temperature.
Minimal,
oil
I would have water temperature, oil temperature, and oil pressure.
Okay.
It's nice to have air-fuel mixture ratio available,
I got one of
and
those.
fuel pressure and voltage.
Okay, so the 5 gauges.
I got a wideband sensor at home.
What?
I got a wideband sensor at home.
It helps when you are trying to diagnose stuff.
Right.
You know, if it doesn't seem to be running right, you can at least say, do I have fuel pressure? You know, without stopping to go and hook up extra gauges.
And mine are analog/digital. They're both.
Okay.
So it has a light that comes up and a needle that moves.
Yeah, that makes an easy read.
So we'll just stick with that, Tom. The ones I got, I'll just stick with them.
Yeah, but you need a bunch more.
Well, we'll get a couple more. Yeah.
Yeah, depending on which ones. Speed Hut makes a bunch of neat SMI stepper gauges, as does Longacre.
I got mine for my Evo, but you can put them in any car.
Yeah, they're just the sensors.
Like,
You know, the unfortunate part is there's no data in the OBD on this, so there's nothing you can pull like
Right.
you can on an 08 or newer.
Yeah. Well, I'm putting an MXM in it, so it has sensors on
The
it.
dash?
Yeah.
Well, then don't.
No, it's not. It's the steering wheel model.
Okay. Then just wire those sensors in and don't go to the expense of a secondary set of analogs, because they're there and that data can all be downloaded and used along with your track
results,
speed and stuff. You know, one of the interesting things to track is your hours and your oil pressure and oil temperature consistencies. As you start to see oil pressure dropping and temperatures increasing, you know, at a period of time, and if you start to see your lap times low, it's an indication that the motor is starting to be tired.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
so if you can track that stuff, you know,
Yeah.
it helps, and
Yeah.
you can
And store it.
look at it every year, you know, or go to a track and say, this is what we did here last year, and this is what the car was running, and this is the the parameters that it was operating in. Is that it should be operating in the same ones. You know, if you have gauges, you get weird readings that, like, wow, I didn't know that I was running out of oil pressure at the bottom of turn 7 at pit.
Right.
Well, if you look at your data and you see that it's doing it consistently, you know, and it did it last year, you know, it's the track, not the car.
Right. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So, you know, or if, you know, oh, I just keep seeing the oil light come on, you better double check. But if you can correlate it to some physical anomaly in the track, like a downhill off camber or something like that.
So if we have the aim on the steering wheel, we're not going to have those gauges in.
If the aim has the ability, well, you're going to spend the money twice. If it already has the ability in it, utilize it, just buy the sensor. The sensor's $100, not another $200 for the whole gauge.
Well, I
and
already
another
got the
sensor.
gauges though.
Well, that's it now. Figure out what you want to do then. Maybe you can use those sensors in the aim if they are their same parameter voltage and stuff.
I think so. Yeah. Those pieces of metal here, just cut them with a hacksaw or something, or?
There's little spot welds in them. You can drill it, or you can just gently work it until the spot weld pops off,
Okay.
and there'll be a small hole in it. But those grounds right there that are attached to that body module are crucial.